name as well,
I'm,
if you'd like to.
I'm Cassandra D. Jenkins. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated,
Hey,
the Delta
soror.
Kappa Omega chapter, as well as a member of the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP on the board of directors with the NAACP. And this is specifically for Judge Baker Carper, my soror. We heard about delinquency, but what a lot of our people, most of our people don't really understand, there's a part of the law that deals with children in need of services and family in need of services in terms of prevention and early intervention. You talked about the PACE Center, but we don't really hear about that and how families can access that. And it usually deals with habitual truants, children that are out of control, runaways, as well as dysfunctional families. So I know you don't deal with that a lot, but I know when you deal with the families, you have siblings and others. So how do we educate our people more on accessing those services? And that's done through Capital City Youth Services, Pay Center for Girls, and other programs. And the funding comes through the Department of Juvenile Justice to those programs around the state. So how do we go about making sure people understand that before we put our kids into the delinquency system?
This one.
Okay, one service that is available that a lot of people don't know of is, who's the people that will come take your kids if you're not doing it right? DCF. So you can call DCF if you're having problems with your child and ask for parental assistance. It is the same phone number that is used if you're trying to report someone for abandoning their child or neglecting their child. You can actually, as a parent who is in need of services, call DCF and say, hey, I am having trouble with my children. Can you help me? Can you help me identify services that will help me for my child? In addition to that, we also have Boys Town. Boys Town is a great program that will identify case managers that will help you find services in the community that may suit you or that you may need. And then you also identify CCYX. CCYX is respite care for your child. If your child does not exhibit any of those aggressive behaviors or extreme substance abuse issues, the CCYS may be a good place for you to take your child to have a timeout. And they will keep your child, provide counseling services for your child, medication management for up to 14 days. So those are 3 services that we have in our community. Yes?
Just to follow up, glad you're able to share that with people. We need to spread the word, but one of the other things, if it's a habitual truancy situation, the schools can work with like CCYS and access those services. And even within law enforcement, as a part of their training, the patrol officers and others are supposed to understand what they should do when they have a dysfunctional situation that is not criminal yet. And so we need to kind of stay on top of law enforcement to make sure that they know you don't have to take them to JAC. Depends on what the dysfunction is. You might be able to take them to CCYS, and then they have to, at least CCYS can then assess those children and family to figure out what kind of services they can recommend or do.
And I have a piggyback. Were you going to say something?
I was just gonna add to that too, and I'm glad you brought up those programs that you could do prior to somebody getting into the system, because a lot of times what we see, I do a lot of juvenile court as well. Sometimes parents call the police to arrest their children in order to try to help them, and that's not the way to do it, because once the child is in that system, it's hard to get them out of the system. And so calling the police to help the child, unless it's something serious, you know. So I've had parents call when they found a firearm in the room. I think that makes sense to call law enforcement sometimes. But don't use the police to discipline your child. And I wouldn't advise that at all. Try to use those other preemptive ways to do it.
I'm smiling because this isn't a funny topic, but like I was 14 and I had a moment with my mom. And she was like, "Get your stuff. I'm taking you to the police station." And she got down there and she's like, "I'm going to sign." She's a smart mouth. I'm going to sign her over to the state. The lady said, "Ma'am, this is not Now that I'm older and I deal with young people, I understand. Have 2 teenagers, bonus babies. I understand like where my mom was on that. Like, you're not gonna talk to me crazy in my house where I pay. But we have all of these services, honestly. See how they grow up and they become better people. But I do have a follow-up question. This might just isn't gonna work, so I'm just gonna speak loud enough. What's the age limitations? That's something we don't talk about, because now these kids are younger and younger, exhibiting behavior that, I don't like the word disturbing, but it's something that we should be concerned about. What's the age limits on how a youth is navigated through the delinquency system or even some of these outside resources?
Well, there is a limit for misdemeanors. There isn't a limit, and that age is 7. So you don't see ages 7 or under getting arrested for, misdemeanors or anything like that. But if it's a forcible felony, you can be 4 years old, right here, armjacking somebody, and you can get arrested. Okay. So there is no limit when it comes to forcible felonies.
Okay. So another question from the audience? Yes. Well, you were first.
I wrote it down because I will forget. Greetings, I am Charlene Howard. I am a member of Beta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Beta Alpha Eta Zeta chapter, and I also am a member of the NAACP. I serve as the advisor for the Florida State chapter of the NAACP. And I had 2 questions. One is for juvenile and one is for landlord, and hopefully my question makes sense. The first question was just about, could you explain a little bit about why a parent is not allowed with an attorney, even though their child might be a minor? I think that could be concerning. Understanding, is there a law? Is there a policy? Is it something that was voted on? Is it something that can be appealed? I don't really know what guides that policy or that law where a parent has to pay for the attorney or has the financial responsibility, but SVU lies because they tell you could be there with the parent, but it's not. So it's not for real. What we see on TV is really not it. And then for the landlord, have you seen experience or have experience with tenants that are renting and they want to purchase homes, and the difficulty of getting out of a lease? Or is there a policy that can aid those that want to be homeowners, but kind of have difficulties with having a home buyer clause in their lease or anything that protects someone that's trying to purchase, but they're leasing? And, it's more details to it, but just overall, is there any information that you
And I'm going to ask Attorney Weaver to go first, just to give Judge Baker Carper a minute to breathe.
Sure. So, if a tenant is in a home that they are going to buy, or there's a contract where it's a contract for sale, and the person is staying there for a year or leasing for a year until all of that is resolved, that pretty much takes them outside of landlord and tenant law. You can no longer use the eviction methods and things of that matter. So ultimately, if you're in a home buying process, it kind of takes you out of the landlord tenant arena.
Well, I was referring more to if they're renting, like they're renting an apartment complex and then they're looking to purchase a home. I know that there wasn't really clear policy or law when researching the state of Florida, because different states are different, what provisions are provided for renters if they're in a lease, and what protects them or aids them with the process, if that makes sense.
I think that she's asking whether or not the contractual agreement with the landlord or the apartment complex, how any impact of that contractual agreement can impact.
Yeah, like is there any state, so there's different states, and based on different attorneys and different realtors, it's like case by case basis. And if a landlord lets someone out of a lease, like legally and per the state, there's not clarity in the policy. Like it gives like vague description of what the landlord and what the tenant could do. And I didn't know if there was like a Leon County or state policy in Florida that kind of helps with those gray areas.
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. So if you're a tenant and you want to break the lease essentially to purchase a home, ultimately, it really depends on the landlord in Florida. There's no specific policies or statutes that require a landlord to allow you to break the lease. However, if you are active military and you are stationed more, I believe, 125 miles away, then the landlord is legally required to allow you to break the lease. However, if there's a clause within your lease that withdraws or takes away that ability, then again, you will be at the mercy of your landlord.
Gotcha. Thank you.
If I may just piggyback, she answers a question, but we have to understand that leases are contractual agreements between the landlord and that tenant. Whatever, if somebody asks me and I'm not the expert on it, I always say, let's look at that lease. Let's see what you agreed to within the terms of that contract, because really everything else is outside of, even if you went to before the court on it, that's what they're going to be looking at first, the four corners of that agreement. So yeah,
and also when they evict you, they have to file the lease with it.
thank you.
So the court will look at that lease. That's how they see the lease. They don't just file an eviction. You got to file that contract with it too, so the judge can see what y'all agreed on and make decisions on it.
So whatever you do moving forward, nothing is going to happen before that, the four corners of that document is investigated by the court and whomever. So,
Tracy.
There's a question, I don't know if it's a follow-up question to the one that was asked by this young lady on the landlord-tenant issue. Is it? No,
Well-
in the back.
does someone have a follow-up question on the landlord tenant? Yes, attorney.
No?
I didn't have a question on landlord tenant, I had one on COVID.
Okay. All right, so the question for delinquency was, what law says that the right to an attorney belongs to the child and not the parent? So that's a combination of constitutional law and 985, okay? And the individual right to an attorney is, what is afforded under our Bill of Rights. So if that child is arrested, the right to attorney belongs to that child, not to the child's parent. 985 is what governs delinquency law, also says that the parent is financially responsible for making sure that child has an attorney, unless that child is 18. There are some 18-year-olds who are still in delinquency court. And if the parent refuses to provide an attorney for that child can motion the court to say, hey, parent, receive this bill, okay? So the bill can be sent to the parent to provide for an attorney for that child. Does that answer your question?
Perfect. We had a question in the back about probate. Yes, sir. Introduce
I am Attorney Larry White, I'm Second Vice President of NAACP, a member of the barristers. And my question is regarding how can you avoid probate? What are the things individuals can do to avoid probate?
So that's an excellent question, and let me say this. Again, I start off by saying you have to have an estate to probate. So a lot of people, really, the main asset they have is, as I described, the marital home that at the time of death becomes the homestead property. There is a legal way to convey your homestead property that avoids probate. It's called a labor deed. It basically says, I own this property, and as long as I live in this property. If I decide I want to sell it before I die, I can. But when I die, it goes to my 3 children in equal distribution. And you don't have to go to probate for that. You can also, put your property in your children's names while you're living, and they just record it at the property office, and so when you pass, you give them the death certificate, and it's now in your name. people, one of the biggest mistakes is that you die and you have the property and you know that grandma or mom wanted whoever to have it, but they never go to probate. So the property stays in the decedent's name. And then, you get a code enforcement violation or somebody comes through and wants to widen the road and they want to pay you some money to widen the road, but you don't have legal title. Okay, so that's another thing. When you talk about probate and estate planning and all of those things, you can avoid probate by just making sure whatever it is you have to give is disposed of, and you have the tools to do that through deeds or other means. And let me be clear, bank accounts, insurance policies, none of that goes through probate. If you can designate a beneficiary, you should, and it will not require probate. If you got your money sitting out there everywhere, I know everybody in here rich. So if you got your money sitting out there and it doesn't have anybody else's name on the account and something happens to you tomorrow, it'll require a court order for anybody to get in that account. Does that,
Yes, thank you.
And what's the two amounts of probate? It's formal and what?
I'm sorry?
The probate is formal probate. What's the?
So there's formal and there's summary. And it's basically, summary is $25,000 or less, and the other one is higher. Honestly, again, and I don't know if the judge saw a lot of this when she was in probate, but most lawyers now, unless it's just a little bit house on the corner that everybody agrees to, is doing a formal probate. Because the risk of not formally probating, which is the notice to creditors and the affidavit to make sure all the heirs are properly noticed, because apparently in many communities, when someone dies, this child pops up that no one knew about.
Somebody knew about it.
And so most of us that do this work now are doing formal because we can't afford the surprise before the judge, and it gets a little toxic and a little unhappy, between the members when they say, I know that was my daddy and no birth certificate, no DNA test, no nothing, and why did you wait since you're 60 and he died at 90 to make that connection? Seriously.
Go ahead. This question, please take.
Hi, my name is Trinice. I'm here with Florida Student Power. So, right now I'm like 23, and my mom is like in her 40s and stuff. So my question for you, Ms. Williams, is how should I start the conversation about like death planning, like trying to figure out like the living will and the last will and testament with my own family? Like, how do I start the conversation without them being scared to talk about it, I guess?
Yeah, so, again, it's how we measure time and life, and it's a very tough conversation to have for ourselves, to do our own last will and testament, and certainly to have with a loved one. But most of my clients that come in for wills and bringing their moms in, that's what they do. You could call it kind of kicking the can, but it's okay. They'll call me and say exactly what you said, and I'll say, well, why don't you bring them in and let me explain to them what the process is? Because sometimes it's amazing. We can't hear from our own family members. We can hear from a third party, and it's easier to process. And there are a lot of questions. Again, it's a tough decision to make, but there are a lot of questions that the lawyer can answer about what happens if, and what do you do if, One of the forms, I'm sorry I didn't mention, was called a healthcare surrogate form. And so again, there's like 4 documents: durable power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, last will and testament, and living will. You've got to start talking to your family members about these documents, and if you don't know yourself, or you're uncomfortable, or they telling you they're gonna live forever and you believe them, just set an appointment up with an attorney that handles that to talk to them about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is a piggyback. She's giving you all the expert information on it, but just as a person who lost both of my parents and a sibling by the age I was like 32 or 33, you just gotta have the conversation. You just gotta go, Mom, not trying to get you out of here earlier than normal, but as a person who's still 10 years later are dealing with probate issues, it's tough, you know? And so I am a huge advocate for just saying, Mom, listen, we don't know, you know, you don't know, and I know this may make you uncomfortable, but having a piece of paper and 2 signatures versus having me spend 10 years trying to get to the bottom of where everything is, it's just sometimes sticker shock. Just rip it off and have the conversation. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Do I need to stand up?
Not yet.
My name is Gail Myron. I'm the prodigal Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority and prodigal NAACP life member, but you all bear with me. I just wanted to make one comment in reference to, I'm a financial advisor, and to piggyback with Attorney Williams, one of my jobs is to make sure you don't have to go through probate. Probate isn't free. Okay, it's a cost. If you have a checking or savings account, see if your bank has a transfer on death form. If they don't have a transfer on death form, create one. And 2 signatures, have it certified, give it to that bank and tell them to put that on file, because if something were to happen to you, hey, most people have automatic draft into their checks automatically drafted into their checking or savings account, so you can have 0 fees. So if you're not banked, I would tell people to please be banked. Be banked means having a checking or a savings account, and so that and if you have your check automatically drafted. I know this isn't a financial advisory, but what I'm trying to do is bypass probate. Okay,
this is right.
in terms of putting your children or someone on a deed, I'm leery of that. That is an option, because if that person gets sued, because we know we're living in a litigious society, if that person that you put on your house gets sued, guess what's a part of their assets? Your house. So, you know, you got to really be, I'm not saying that that's not an option. That is an option. But there are other options in terms, now I didn't know about that lady thing. I want to talk to you about that, because that.
And I agree with what you said, and if they don't have transfer on death, it's called point of death. I just litigated a point of death case, over $500,000 was at issue, and it was whether or not the person had the capacity to, it was whether or not the person had the capacity to go into the bank a year before they died and change the beneficiaries and put the point of death. But the Lady Bird deed is really, it's been around, you know, it's just we don't know what we don't know. So, but it's been around forever, and it is, to me, and they call it different things in other states, but it is, to me, one of the simplest ways to make sure that your marital home or homestead goes to your lineal descendants. So the other thing I need to tell you about probate is probate goes this way. If you die, whether it's with will or without will, it goes up, it goes down, and then it goes to the side. So if you have parents living, they have to be included. And children living, they have to be included. If you have neither, that's when it goes out to the sides if you have any siblings. And if you have none, where does it go? So then you think you want to take care of stuff, if you, especially a single child, that you would want to make sure, whoever it is, your niece, your nephew, whatever, take care of it. And it's just not that hard. It's just hard for us to think about writing out what it is we want to do.
And if I may, question. Okay, that's me.
Well, is it morning? Good morning. Okay. Good morning. I am Iris Young Clark, and so I kind of wanted to know a little bit from Attorney Williams about trust versus a will. Just really kind of want to process one or the other.
So first rule of disclaimer for any lawyer is I don't do trust, so I will give you just a very minimal brief overview of the differences. So first of all, will is the intent to dispose of your estate at death. Trust can be done at any point in your life. So you can set up a trust for your children to go to college. You can set up a trust to do all kinds of things in terms of financial investments. You can have a trust within the provisions of your last will and testament that they cannot, I leave $100,000 to my grandchildren in trust, provided they do the following: graduate high school, have an A average, whatever. So trusts are ways of shaping and defining criteria by which you want whomever's going to receive this money to meet. And the trustee is the person that manages it until such time as it's supposed to be distributed. And like I said, I don't do them. They can be very complicated and they can be very simplistic. This is my position on trust. If you want somebody to have something, you ought to trust that you can give it to them without paying somebody to distribute it to them.
Amen. Very good. That's right.
Aren't there tax benefits to
I was
setting
just
up a
about to
trust?
say that.
So there are tax benefits, and if you are in that level, then yes, you will probably be talking to someone at a different level. But I'm saying, and that's pretty much over $100,000. Okay, so if you've got $100,000, like the example I gave, there may be some benefits to keeping it in a trust so that it can accrue and do some different things, and you don't get taxed on it because you're going to distribute. But everything at some point under distribution is taxable. So you may hold it in trust with a tax break, but when you distribute it, it doesn't happen. So you do it. But you say, give me $30,000, it's all right. So so again, I'm not as proficient on all the nuances, so I don't want to go too far, but I do have a concern that people that don't, like, again, $500,000, $100,000, whatever, but people that don't, it's $25,000. I'm just not sure that's a wise decision to put in a trust when you could just give it to them and say, boy, if you do this, or you ain't gonna get this money.
Thank you. I say this with a huge warning sign, and I see you. I'm coming to you next. Is that we will Google, did Cardi B change her hair yesterday? We will Google, is Babyface and Anita Baker still fighting? We will not get on and do any research about the things that really matter. We know that Google is not going to tell us everything, but some of the basic understanding of these, for instance, I do not do probate law, but the Lady Bird deed, as it's called here in Florida, is very simple. Simple enough for it. You read it and look at it and either have a consultation with somebody, or I was saying early to Attorney Weaver, I had the opportunity to work for the Supreme Court to write their landlord-tenant self-help law. There's a lot of those things through the Supreme Court that you can go on, and it's a guided tour like TurboTax to help you kind of draft these documents. So I just wanted to take a point to say, we gotta kind of take a moment out to not do intensive research, but look into these things because there's information available to us. I'm gonna take your question after I take hers. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. Serenity Williams, proud member of Justice within Serenity Incorporated as well. Here by capacity with self-help credit union. But my question involves probate as well. I personally had to go through probate with my father, and it's been a very long process. Still going on, and he passed away in 2016. And I think my question involves how you as a lawyer, how you would suggest siblings who might not be sibling-like. they're not friends.
These are real facts.
How you would go through that sort of, how you would suggest for someone like me to navigate that sort of situation, or if there's already a lawyer assigned, should these other siblings go out and get a lawyer if they don't trust them, or
Okay, so to be clear, when an estate is open, when you say I'm going to probate a matter, the statute says 2 years after they die. I have probated cases, they've been dead 20 years, so that's okay. But it's 2 years by statute, all right? That's when you're supposed to file. But there are reasons why things don't get to court. As to your issue, when you open up a probate estate, if it's a formal administration, because typically, again, summary is everybody agrees, so you don't have to do anything but have the property transferred or whatever it is you're trying to do. If it's a formal administration, somebody in that family is going to ask the judge to be appointed as the personal representative. When they are appointed, there will be an attorney associated with that personal representative. Now, let's be crystal clear. That attorney is for the personal representative of that estate, not that person who's occupying that position personally. They are not the personal attorney. But you know, it gets confusing, and people see that the personal representative wants to go this way in terms of the distribution, and the other children, siblings, whomever else it is, doesn't want to, and the lawyer is advocating for that personal representative, and so the family members think they need to go and get their own lawyer. We gonna all lawyer up, because that person is telling us that we can't do this, that, and the other. I think at the minimal, and this is not just to give all my colleagues work, but I think at a minimum, if you ever have in your mind a thought that your legal rights are not being protected, you want to consult with a lawyer. So if you're in a probate case and you think that the personal representative or the lawyer in the thing, that maybe they're just not looking at it at the right perspective in terms of what the testamentary intent, remember, because that's the key for the judge to decide. What did the testator want to happen in death? Then you should consult with someone, you know. And it doesn't matter if your whole siblings have siblings, it doesn't matter. You should feel comfortable that however long and protracted the process is, that when it's over, you had your day in court and your voice was heard. I mean, I think that's true for everything, right?
Hi.
She was just adding,
Oh,
before you
sorry.
ask, no, please stand that it's not just always siblings, it's family members, period. Like, until you've gone through it, you get to see the greatest side. All of your family members, as soon as you get into these type of matters. Go ahead.
Hi, greetings. I'm Samaya Muhammad. I am a collegiate member and president of the family section of NCNW, or the National Council of Negro Women, if you don't know. I did have 2 questions. My first question was for Judge Baker Carper. Sorry, I have my glasses. A list of places or ways to volunteer with the women or the girls that are in your program around the Tallahassee area, or even in the local Leon County, Gadsden County area. If you guys could provide a list, or maybe ways that we can help as women that are roughly around their same age, maybe a little bit older, that can kind of give some insight on how to get out of that system, or to just make their lives a little bit better. I'll ask that one first.
Okay.
So we've heard PACE Center for Girls. What does that look like? It looks like you going to PACE, signing up with them, letting them know that you want to be involved. Like I said, we can't have enough mentors for these young girls. If it's not PACE, go to any local public school and let them know, hey, I want to be a mentor. Use me. I'm available. I'm in college. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I want to tutor. These kids need tutoring services. In addition to that, there's one more that's escaping me. We have a clothing center in our courtroom. So we have a program where these young men and women, they can earn community service hours by wearing a tie to court. If they teach someone how to tie a tie, they get 10 hours of community service. If they learn themselves, they get 5 hours of community service. And every time they show up to court in a tie, they get 3. So it encourages them dressing professionally. And I love to cite this quote by one of my favorite athletes, Deion Sanders. When you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. And when you play good, you get paid good. So it's encouraging these young men and women to look good. Have a clothing department in our courtroom. So if y'all have any clothes, you just want to donate, drop off, or whatever, it's there, okay? But like I said, call Mr. Randolph, and I'm telling you, I will put your name on a list if you call him, and I will oftentimes call people right there in court, because a young person needs a mentor, and they will say something like, I want to rap, or I want to play sports, and I'll call Coach Carter, or I want to be a life coach, and I'm calling Kevin Warren. I want to, it's all about me being able to know who you are and what you do, so that when that child comes up with that issue, I promise you, I'm calling you right there in the courtroom, and we're going to have a conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She has.
Sorry. My other question was for Attorney Weaver. So I bought my house and I just went through the process of putting it in a trust. So I'm trying to figure out, what are some issues that you see with lease agreements that landlords can include to better protect themselves? Like mistakes that they might see or things that they're missing, in order to better protect themselves?
In regards to lease agreements, one of the most important things to have in there is a clause for attorney's fees, and in fact, you do have to go to court. But outside of that, and that's when I'm representing landlords, a lot of times they do not, and it's essentially at that point the judge's discretion in regards to who's going to obtain attorney fees. Outside of that, just to make clear what you will be providing and what you will not be providing, as well as, obligations and duties that you expect for the tenant ultimately to take care of. Things such as like landscaping or certain repairs that you feel that you may not want to provide. Detailing those specifically is very important.
May I say this too? When you go to court and you win a claim, that's only a judgment against that person. The court can't make them pay. You still got to collect that money too. So that's two different things. So you can sue somebody and win. If they can't pay you, they can't pay you. They can do other stuff and garnish wages. If they don't have wages, you ain't getting paid. So don't just because you win, don't mean you won. All right. Until that money's in your hand, then it worked. All right, so it's a.
Let me just say it how I feel it. You're
Go
not
ahead.
getting that money. So is there another question? Oh, it's yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Everine Johnson, and I have a question for Ms. Rollins. I know that Mr. Akbar, you were an assistant public defender. I know Judge Baker Carper, you were previously a public defender, assistant public defender. Ms. Rollins, are public defenders real attorneys?
That's a great question.
Yes.
And also, you're one of the very few black board certified trial attorneys in this area.
Yes, all assistant public defenders are attorneys. I know the assistant and that sometimes confuses people, but we're assistants because there's an elected public defender. But we are all attorneys. A lot of times we usually have the most experience. We're most familiar with the judges and the prosecutors because we're in the courtroom every day. And a lot of the attorneys who are in private practice in defense usually started out as public defenders and have taken that information, knowledge, and experience and gone out on their own. So yes, all attorneys, and sometimes some of the best attorneys in the courtroom.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to follow up on that too. I'm glad you asked that question because certainly in private practice, I do criminal defense, and so people will call me and I say, "Do you have a lawyer?" And they say, "No, I have a public defender." I was like, "No, you have a lawyer." and like you said, the best attorneys that's out there, whether like civil, criminal, usually come out of the public defender's office because it's you have to be creative when you do criminal defense work, and you have to have a passion for criminal defense and also for the law in order to do that work. And we usually like kind of blossom into like great trial attorneys when we do it. So and it's not a knock on your financial abilities or whatever if you have to have a public defender represent you because again like they have a relationship with the judges because they're in there every day. They have a relationship with the prosecutors and it's a great office and it's a great place to be. And while I have the mic also, I wanted to piggyback on juvenile court. it's certain things that Judge Baker can't say that I can say about the juvenile system. So I think it's important that we ask about mentorships and ways to volunteer in the juvenile system. I think it's the most broken system that we have, DJJ in the juvenile system. It's only but so much that Judge Baker can do. And, you know, it's so wonderful to have her there because, like, she genuinely cares. And if you have an hour to sit in juvenile court one day a week, Tuesday is probably the best days to go in. Just go sit in there and see the trauma that those kids go through, that they have in their life, in the ways that we have to try to maneuver to get them through a system that's not meant for them to get through. It's literally the school to prison pipeline. If you want to see it in person, go sit in juvenile court. You know, they suspend these kids, they expel these kids, and then they expect Judge Baker to fix it all, or the DJJ system to fix it all. It's a warehouse now, which it shouldn't be. It's supposed to be rehabilitation. It's not, unless you're creative in ways to make it rehabilitation. Otherwise, it's pretty much 100% privatized as far as the programs. So you have these private firms that pretty much buy a program or bid for a program. They get paid per kid, per bed. And they usually they want to get them out so they can get another kid in so they can get paid for that next kid to come through. And what we're seeing now with the violence in our community, with black boys going to prison at alarming rates, pretty much all of those kids have been through the Department of Juvenile Justice. So that tells you that it's not working. And the way that it does work is when we, again, get them with the mentor, get them into some type of program, pretty much avoid the DJJ programs as much as we can, in order to make sure that we don't see them with attorney violence, or I don't see them in adult criminal court. So I do want to say that it's not peaches and cream. And mental health, yes. A lot of them, probably, I would say 75% of the kids have mental health issues, on the spectrum. And some, and the reason, so private attorneys can be on the conflict list, what they call the conflict list. So the public defender's office has a conflict, and then the criminal conflict office has a conflict, and we can get appointed to cases. And the only list I'm on is in juvenile court, and that's intentional. And so I represent a lot of the kids also, and probably about 75% of them have a mental health issue. That's undiagnosed a lot of times, or overdiagnosed a lot of times as well. So they're either over-medicated or under-medicated. And the school system can't handle them. And so they end up in the system. And then we're trying to figure out ways to get them the mental health treatment that they need, that is not designed to provide. Because if you don't have a felony or a certain type of felony, then there's no mental health court for juveniles, and also in adult court, there's no mental health court. So the criminal system in both juvenile and adult is not designed to assist when it comes down to mental health. So we need those resources. You know, it's all kind of legislation going on that's not focusing on any of these things. But we need to, as a community, look at that mental health, juvenile court, in order to navigate the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Attorney Akbar, for doing that.
And that's 9 a.m. Courtroom 3E.
9 a.m. Did you hear it? Courtroom 3E. Okay, so there are a number of hands. Because you asked the question already, did you have a follow-up to what we said?
Yeah, follow-up to that.
If you could quickly. Go ahead.
Not so much a question, but a follow-up in terms of I can mentor. There's several programs, as the judge said. We have big brothers and big sisters, and they have a couple of thousand kids on the waiting list right now. Wow. So we have big brothers, big sisters, the Tempo Foundation, and the other programs that need mentors, including the Parks and Rec system. They're always looking for volunteers and mentors. But in terms of the statement made by Attorney Akbar, I was part of the team that set up the Department of Juvenile Justice and that system. And so a part of the way it was supposed to be set up and the way it's done is not the same. So we focus on going to the legislature and looking at what laws they pass. What we don't do a good job of is looking at what those agencies do and how they actually implement the rules and the policies. And we don't focus on that. And so that's a part of what we really need to start doing. It's like, do we need to start focusing on and meeting with the heads of these agencies, all of who are based in Tallahassee. But then the other thing that you also need to look at is that there's a silo system. The Department of Children and Families has mental health. Juvenile Justice doesn't have mental health services very much, so they have to depend on DCF to do that. Then you don't even talk about the children and some adults that have developmental disabilities, because that's a silo pot of funds. And so a part of what we have to look at is that there's an issue with that, plus a lot of the families that come before the judge, they need services.
And I'm gonna ask when this is over, because you seem like an expert with a lot of resources, that you would stay aside and just really help navigate us through that, because a lot of us are more interested than we may be able to have the opportunity to say. But you are my point person for that. If I can take this young lady here, and then Marie, I'll take you after that, and then I'll take you. I'm just calling in the order that I saw it. Go ahead.
Good morning. I am Kendra Turner. I'm a teacher here in Leon County, and so my question is for Judge Baker Carper. What are some things that I, as a teacher, can do without, of course, overstepping, or within the classroom, and some things that I can encourage school-wide to help these students? I teach at elementary school. And I see kind of some of these behaviors that could lead to trouble in the future. And so I want to know, what can I do to kind of like turn that around?
In just a short summary of her question for the people that are here in the back, she's just saying, as a teacher, what can she do to help in this process?
I think it's a question she can't answer. I'll answer it. Don't call the police on her. Unless you absolutely have to. Like if it's a weapon, if it's something where, okay, only law enforcement can get involved, but do what you can to resolve it in the classroom, in the school, discourage the administration to get law enforcement involved. When we were growing up, you can fight, you can do whatever, not saying it was okay, but we wouldn't go to jail for it. Now, the pettiest, littlest fight, they're calling law enforcement, they're going to jail, they're going to the juvenile, and they may end up in front of Judge Baker Carper, and she has to do what she can within the laws. She just can't say this is petty, I'm gonna dismiss it. And a lot of times teachers or administrators think that's what's gonna happen. But do what you can to avoid law enforcement getting involved and seeing what you can do within the school in order to take care of it.
And we have a teacher, social worker right behind you, Taki, who just wanted to address that. Guys, I know we want to direct questions to Judge Baker Carper, but we want her to be there for a very, very long time. And I apologize.
So I appreciate this brother right here, being able to speak in his capacity.
Yes, so I'm good, thank you. So I just finished my 24th year in Leon County Schools, but I'm director of I worked 10 years at Griffin Middle School, and I just finished my 14th year at Rickers High School. I love working with our brown kids because I feel that they need to see people that look like them in positive roles. And so I see one of my coworkers back there, Dr. Cole. I love the fact that Rickers High School, we have a lot of minority males for our males to see. But as far as what educators can do, and also mentors, and I already put your name down, I'm going to talk to you afterwards, because we always need mentors, because kids need to see people that look like them, that are doing positive things. And so I know they mentioned Big Brother, Big Sisters has a list. You can go directly to the school. There's a mentor coordinator at every Leon County school. They do volunteer awards and mentors. You can apply Leon County volunteer application. It's online. You have to do it every year. You can help in classrooms, like there's little things, and then if you're able to do more, if you're able to commit to an hour a week, then that's gonna help the kids. There are programs, I have 2 brown boys, and their dad is involved, but he lives out of town, they're with him now, but they're part of Omega Lamplighters, programs like that where they're learning to tie ties, they're learning to change tires, they're having attorneys come talk to them about staying away from be supportive and help with the other kids that are there. So there's always things you can do as far as like if they're fighting and getting suspended, the administration and the school resource officers, if it gets to that point, they're going to do what they have to do to keep control of the school. But as far as in the classroom, having volunteers, you can sign up to be a mentor. When I went to Rickards, I still mentored a student that was at Griffin. I still keep in contact. She's an adult now. I still keep in contact with her to this day. So I actually got a mentor award for still volunteering with her while I had gone to another school. So you can volunteer at another school or in the community center. I just spoke with the lady at Jack McLean. We have a meeting this week because she wants to do partnership with our sorority. So there's various things in the community, and like we're trying to collect the books and give back to the community. Our chapter, we just got a little free library, and it's going to be right across from them. So we have a partnership trying to give back to those students that look like us. So it's always things that you can do. It's just going out, asking, and talking to somebody about it.
Oh, there is work to do.
Anyway, in addition to that, we have a lot of schools on the north side of town who frequent the courthouse. They take tours. I don't see that a lot from our other Brown schools, okay? Our kids don't need to be introduced to the court system for the first time after they've been arrested, okay? They need to feel empowered. They need to feel as if though that courthouse belongs to them as well, and it is a place that they can go for recourse. So get involved with the schools and encourage the schools to take some tours. Feel free to bring a group of kids to sit in the courtroom so that they can see how the process works. And if you get a bright idea and you're like, oh, I would love if we could implement this, we just need to get the judge involved. What's Ryan's number? I got 43. I love it. I love to convene a meeting, honey, to work for these kids. So if y'all have some bright ideas on what we can do to better our community, I promise you I'm there.
Okay, and we're running out of time, guys. I know everybody has questions. Marie, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Okay. I'm gonna make it quick. Hello, everybody. My name is Marie Radigan. I'm one of the founders for the Tallahassee Bail Fund Committee, the third vice president for the NAACP. But right now I'm in a civic engagement role. So my question actually is to the public defenders, past public defenders as well. As a civic engagement director, this past legislative session, bills were horrible. And some of the things that we know, a lot of people have to pay fines and fees now that we have to register all over again, right? So could you elaborate on ways people can find out if they have fines and fees that they need to pay before they get registered to vote so they don't get arrested?
She said I can't talk no more.
Keith, go ahead. Did you want to?
If the fines and fees are connected to criminal cases, civil cases, the best way to do that is to contact those clerks of court. You will have to contact every different clerk because every county has their own clerk. So if you know there had been something in Gadsden and something in Liberty, probably not Liberty, but Leon, then you have to contact that clerk. If there's a speeding ticket, sometimes that has gone to collections, and something as simple as that will stop a person from, one, having a valid license, which could have caused a crime, which would prevent registration to vote. So just you have to contact every single clerk's office.
And also, if you have court costs and fines and your license are suspended, we have a payment program. You can give them a payment program, get a clearance to get your license back and make payments on it. Don't be around here driving without your license, because a lot of time the officer that stopped you while you was going home. Then he on that same route the next day, you still going home and driving. You haven't changed cars. You have an orange car. He remembers that because oranges are appealing. No, I know they ain't satisfied that fine that quick. Get on that payment plan. And also, public defender, you just don't qualify for a public defender. You have to do the indigent form. You don't just get one because you did a crime. It costs. All right. If you don't make a certain amount, then you qualify. But they'll let you know. So you don't just get appointed one. It's a process behind. That's the question she wanted to ask.
And also, for the court costs too, you can qualify to do community service hours to pay off your court costs. So if people ask, say, hey, I have X amount of court costs, and it's usually at $10 an hour that you can get rid of your court costs. The only thing that you can't do community service hours for are the public defender fees and the cost of prosecution.
And also, when your fines go to collection, y'all, if you got $100 fine, if it goes to collection, it turns to $140. It's like, don't let it go. If you're gonna be late with a payment, call them and tell them. Kurt Marshall, she get on them about talk to these people. Y'all can't pay different things y'all locked up. You know what I'm saying? It ain't about the fines, it's about keeping your freedom and keeping you out of those courts. Although that's job security for us, we still want to do less work.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Good morning. There is one thing that we've heard you talk about. We talk about agencies. We talked about mentoring programs as it relates to young people. But the one thing that is glaringly missing
It's mental health.
and the role of the parent.
Oh.
And I think that we do ourselves a tremendous injustice, Attorney Outlaw and everybody else up there, if we can't figure out a way to get our children's parents involved in this process and teach them how to parent, because whether you like it or not, a lot of these problems start in the home. That's an observation, not a question. That doing that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to, I see everybody, but the time is drawing out. I'm trying to go ahead and those last two questions to these two folks. Oh, okay. Did you want to go ahead and make your comment?
Yeah, the comment is that she made it. I do teach at Rikers. I'm also the minister of the Parliament Road Church twice. I'm gonna speak as a minister, but I'm gonna use some knowledge that my other half told me. So I can't speak for this. What I can tell you is that I get cussed out twice. I get cussed out by the student, call the parent, and get cussed out because I bothered the parent about the student. Whether it's cheating, whether it's fighting, whether it's that telephone, whether it's whatever it is. So I can't say enough about the comment that was just made. By the time the judge has to do it, there's a problem. So if people want to volunteer with the folks in your family, the ones in your house, the ones on your block, the ones in the church. There are a lot of kids you probably pass over looking for a mentorship.
No, I'm married to the assistant principal of discipline at Gaston County High School. So I understand all about getting cussed out every day. So thank you all of you teachers for what you do. Absolutely.
Good, almost afternoon. My name is Carla Adams Lippett. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I want to switch it up from juveniles. I'm going to go back to probate. In terms of the Florida Uniform Petition of heirs property, how does that apply in heirs property when you go to probate?
So,
Or when can it apply?
I'm not sure I understand your question completely, but let me say this. I'm not sure I understand your question completely. So, heir property has a specific statutory definition, and it is derived from someone, and it is only by blood. So, there is a uniform that is standard across most states as to how they define what constitutes an heir of, the second generation, whatever, and all those types of things. But what is your question? Because who takes in terms of their lineage, or if they are an heir, is always going to be governed by either the intestacy statute or the distribution made by the last will and testament.
And is that the law that came into effect in 2020? Is that the changes that came into effect in 2020 as it relates to the Uniform Petition Heirs Act?
So this is timed again. This is just standard probate law. The uniform is to adopt standards that, exactly what you said, cross the board, so that it doesn't matter if it's you or me or someone else, the rules will apply the same. And that was kind of tweaked a little bit because of the inconsistency in judicial decision making. So they want to make everybody know that if you've got, 40 acres and a mule, and it's got to be divided between 7 people, and this is the descent, and there's a dispute about whether or not that's a blood relative or just a half sister or a whole sister, it doesn't make a difference. So if I'm not,
You did answer it.
okay.
Thank you. And we will take the last question. I'm so sorry. These wonderful panelists will be here at least for a few minutes. before we, so if you need to get a one-on-one, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay. Yes, absolutely, I got you.
I respect my elders, go ahead now. But I would like to go after you because we need to get some unity going. Everybody, we got together in this movement, and I mean, it's good to sit up here and laugh and joke about it, but unless, like, you lost everything for it, like I have, like a real political advocate, a real social advocate, like out here in the community, and I've been working in the community, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For over 20 years, like I walked here today to bring those books, right? I've been here, we've done Christian Children, we've done Rock the Boat, we've done the Boys and Girls Club, and I've done that not only here, but in Baghdad, Iraq as well. So, been doing this for quite a while. So it's nice to sit up here and smile and laugh about it, but when you're really out here on the streets doing the work, like that's some hard work. And that we have a lot of things that are trying to come against us to divide us. We need to move in unity. We are all together. This is our fight together. Everybody. Just be loving. Love one another. Don't know what the question is, but the answer is always love. Like we have HB 999 out right now, where we are moving books through churches. Like we have attacks on local churches, like we are going back in time. And yes, it's nice to sit up here and smile. No, like we are here hearing our rights, hearing our laws, because this is real. And unless you're actually out here, I don't know. I walked here to bring this book, and this is real, and it's not a joke. It's not a joke. And like you all discussed earlier, you don't get help from the police department when you call. You don't. They won't help you. Like, and so I don't think it's a laughing matter. You have to realize the seriousness of this moment. Like the seriousness of this moment and how far back in time we're going, and this is not a time for any of us to be divided. We need to be looking out for each other. Everyone, move, one band, one sound. Like looking out for each other. Put that down to whoever you talk to, whenever you have a conversation. We are not against each other. We are all here for the same reason. The same reason. And so until your car is being towed and the police are laughing at you because we had an event where we collected books. We were collecting books. And until you've been publicly humiliated, until you've been a real social advocate out there at our events and had to walk it and bear it, I don't think it's a laughing matter. So yes, it's funny to sit up here and do this back and forth, but until you've really been out here, I haven't even changed clothes in days. This is not a game out here. Like real social advocates out here fighting for our streets, fighting for our neighborhoods, in the community, bearing the burden of that, bearing the burden of us being united, walking as I walk down this segment, stopping as a female, stopping in between grown men and asking, hey sir, this is just a bag of books. Sir, we're just transporting books. We're trying to get our black children educated because we can no longer do it in the curriculum. I lost my job for it. I lost my PhD school for it. And I also am about to lose my housing for it. Okay? So until you actually done the work, like we do the work out here. And we've been doing it for over 20 years. Over 20 years.
And we appreciate
And I get it. And that's
your
just not back
passion.
on that. We just need to move one band, one sound. Everybody look out for each other. Let each other know that we are working together.
You don't start
Together.
clapping. Start clapping.
We appreciate it.
You gotta be smooth with it.
Right, thank you. I'm Ruby Barr, and I'm in my 40th year now, and I clearly understand what she's saying, of course. And I applaud all of you all for everything, because I've come to a lot of these in 40 years. We understand the importance of making sure that, because if we don't look out for us, who's going to look out? But these are the comments that I want to make that was said today. After a while, you get institutional knowledge. Now, what I want you all to know that if you get a judgment against your tenant, all is not necessarily lost. Get a certified copy of the judgment, record it in the recording section. Here in Leon County, it's right inside the clerk of the office. Go and record it, because what will happen is that it'll affect their credit, and one day they may want to buy a home or something else, and they're going to have to find you and satisfy that judgment. Or if you do the same thing with small claims court, just make sure that whatever the judge signs, you get it certified by the clerk of courts. That's what Keith Rogers works. Make sure it's certified before you record it. And so even if it's 15 years down the line, you know, it'll just be a nice little piece of change. So make sure that you do that. The other thing that I also want to say is that with respect to those Lady Bird deeds, understand that when it comes to those liens, the person that you convey it to or people that you convey it to, their liens will not attach to that property. So that's why we love those Lady Bird deeds, because whoever's the grantor, the owner, they maintain absolute power and control as long as they're living. That other person or persons that is conveyed to, they don't have anything as long as that person is living. So that's important to understand, that you're protected, and also you don't lose your homestead. That's another thing that's important. You don't lose your homestead, which is also used to calculate your property taxes. So that's important. Last thing that I want to say is that our public defender stated about battery convictions and the aggravated stuff and whatnot. That's important to understand, because with a battery conviction or with certain type of batteries, aggravated, domestic batteries, those sort of things, you can't get your record sealed. Now that's important to understand, because there's a lot of folks that I know that look just like us that got stuck when something happened when they were much younger, and now they want to get it sealed or expunged. You can't get it sealed. And the other thing that's also important is that certain type battery things, convictions, will severely limit and restrict what kind of jobs that you're able to get. You won't be working, of course, you're not working at a school, you're not working in senior citizen, plays, parks and rec. So those are the kinds of things that we also need to know to share with our families and our friends. Thank you.
Do that affect your gun rights as well?
It does.
Certain batteries?
Yes, certain things.
Yes.
And domestic violence charges as well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
let me say this too. They didn't bring it about domestic battery. It used to be called a temporary restraining order. Now it's a domestic violence injunction. Just because you feel threatened or think your life is in danger, that does not guarantee you an injunction. There really has to be far more to that. It has to be far more substantial and sufficient, because the judge can then deny it because they said insufficient evidence or whatever it is to substantiate granting of an injunction. So just make sure, that you understand how these can affect you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby. Thank you, Keith. As we wrap this up, I am just overwhelmed by how much amazing information was shared with you and me today. We're grateful for the chair of this event. Let me give a she'll come up in a few minutes to give her acknowledgement, before that we will have acknowledgments by Adna Morsaline, but before I let him come, thank you all so much for being engaged. Much like the young lady said, this is no laughing matter. I have a jovial personality, but I understand her intensity in that we have work to do. If you're going to a school, if you're showing up to a community center, PACE is open. We've talked about CCYS. We've talked about so many resources. There's somebody in this room right now who can get you connected if you are ready to go and begin to do the work. So thank you for your time and your attention. Mr. Marcelli.
Project my voice, it's all right.
Get the mic.
All right. Thank you all. You all had a good time tonight?
Thank you in church.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Adna Marcelin. I'm the immediate past president of the NAACP. And part of a lot of these organizations, I won't name them all, but since we did call out every other organization, I'm here with the Ice Cold Brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. All right. I was given the difficult job by our chairperson, Attorney Green Johnson. She's going to try to set me up. So I got to call the names, and I'm going to do this. I got my phone out this time so I can stay there. But we first want to say on behalf of the committee for this event, we wanted to recognize our panelists, Attorney Mutaki Akbar of the Akbar Thomas Law Firm, the Honorable Judge Tiffany Baker Carper, thank you for your willingness to always come in. Our second judge, we have Darlene Rogers, Rollins, I'm sorry.
I like Rogers better.
Okay, Attorney Darlene Rollins, Attorney Jennifer Weaver, and Attorney Harriet Williams, as well as Attorney Tamisha Brooks Black. And we thank you all for taking the time out of your weekend to come and educate our community and to help provide us with the resources. I also would like to take a moment just to acknowledge some of our partners with Delta Sigma Theta and the president who disappeared on me, President Terica Jones, who's somewhere around here, Attorney Akbar, president of the Tallahassee branch of the NAACP, and Louis Jean-Baptiste, who is the president of the Tallahassee Barristers. Thank the organizations for being partners with us on today. And last but not least, we'd like to acknowledge the members of the committee, which is Janae, wave your hand if you're here.
She's in a training in Virginia.
She's in a training, but she was good. Jasmine, Lillian, all right, myself, Attorney Williams, and last but not least, our wonderful chairperson, Ed Green Johnson, that kept us all.
Leon County Clerk's office too.
And our clerk, Gwen Marshall. And Keith Rogers. Thank you all. But not belabor the time, and if there's not one thing that we picked up out of here, our rights can only be protected when we all vote. And so I will take a point of personal privilege to remind everybody to register and vote, but not only that, show up at the polls, because our voting numbers are at an all-time low. And if we're going to protect our rights, it starts with going to the polls, registering to vote, and making sure that you're re-registering to vote by mail, because if you haven't known, there's been some changes. And you might think you registered and still on the roll, but checking at that table before you leave and make sure your information is up to date. And at this time, I'll pass the microphone to Lillian, who will do, Attorney Akbar, who will do further acknowledgments. Thank you all.
So I got a dual role as a panelist and also as the president of the NAACP Tallahassee branch. So I was asked to give the closing remarks. There's not much to add, but I do want to acknowledge elected officials. I just saw Acting Akinyeme walk in. He's our property appraiser. And of course, Judge Tiffany Baker Copper. She's certainly also in the so I want to acknowledge you. I don't think I missed anybody, but if I did, I'm sorry. And Yolanda Green is our administrative law judge, so it's not necessarily elected, but I do want to acknowledge Judge Green. Okay. Just as far as closing remarks, what I was just mentioning to Judge Baker just now is that we didn't, I guess, realize how important these conversations are until we got into this, and people have so many questions, and we're the educated folks. We're the folks that's supposed to know this. So just imagine the folks who are struggling to pay rent, struggling to make sure that their children are educated. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that they're engaged in these conversations also. So that's the passion that we saw from the young lady in the back, is that she struggles with so many other things, and we kind of take for granted these types of panelists in these environments, in these conversations. So I hope that this panel and this conversation energizes us and gets us out there so we can play a role in the Department of Juvenile Justice, that we can make sure our properties that are heir properties are taken care of in probate court. Because one thing that we see all the time, like you said, in Frenchtown, in Southside, in major black communities, we lose our property, we lose our land because we simply don't know that we can need the probate. And speaking of that, there's actually a program that I want to mention. There's a program that's about to start in Frenchtown and in on the South Side, specifically to hire attorneys to help you with your heir property. So that's coming up. So look for that, and you can kind of advise people on going through that program as well. but I'm getting told to sit down and shut up. So that's what I'm about to do. Join the NAACP and help us in what we're doing in this community. But thank you all, and I'm gonna pass the mic.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Saying because I wrote that there, and I should just skip over it. My name is Lillian Davis. I'm here in a dual capacity. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I'm also a staff attorney for Legal Services of North Florida, along with my colleague Abigail Chapman. For those who are not aware, Legal Services of North Florida, the Public Defender's Office will assist you if you have a criminal matter. We're here to help you if you have a family issue, whether it's divorce, child support. We also do landlord-tenant, we do elder law, and we also handle contract disputes. So anything else that might be handled in the civil forum, Legal Services of North Florida is available to assist you, but please keep in mind that there's a median income level that you have to fall under, because you have to be considered vulnerable in that respect, and then we can assist you. We felt like this was a great opportunity to educate our community. And Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can choose to change the world. Now, for those of you who may feel like this was a great event, we can always do better. So we have a QR code that we want you to scan and give us your feedback and let us know how you feel we can make this next event better. We also have a giveaway at that table, so once you come over there to get that information and complete the evaluation, we would love that. And so we are grateful this morning to our community agencies that have taken part. We have the tables all around against the wall for the various agencies. We of course have the Tallahassee Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We have on the flyers, there's the Innocence Project of Florida is listed, the Legal Aid Foundation of Tallahassee, and of course myself and Abigail from Legal Services of North Florida, the Leon County Clerk of Courts and Comptroller, we saw him, and we have the Leon County Property Appraiser, he's in the house, thank you. NAACP is represented, Tallahassee Barristers, Tallahassee Veterans League Collaborative, Tallahassee Bar Association, the Big Bend Voting Rights Project, Tallahassee Bail Fund is represented, Self-Help Credit Union, Southside Community Law Center. Thank you all so much for coming out, and we appreciate your attendance. Have a great day.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine Mattier, and I'm one of the people who were so lucky to be on this committee to put together this event. I don't have a quote, but I just feel like it is so empowering to be in a room full of Black attorneys. Growing up, all I ever wanted to do was become a Black attorney, and to be in a room full of them, and to be included in that number, it's just so powerful to me. So I just wanted to take that in and feel that for a second, because this is something that makes a difference in circles. So I have the honor of explaining our raffle process, as well as how the Community Expo portion of this event will work. So I'll start with the Community Expo portion. So at the registration table, when everyone came in and signed up, I have added some index cards that look just like this. They're just basic white index cards. On the index card, we just need you to write your name, your phone number, and your email address. And if you want, you can add your address, but you don't have to. Once you move around to each of the Community Expo partners' tables and you speak with them, they're going to stamp the back of your index card, and then when you finish, you can come to us, put it in the bag, and we're going to pull raffles to give out raffle prizes. So I mentioned raffles, and we already have some prizes that are going to go out right now, based on some things that are happening while we're in the moment, asking questions, getting this amazing information. So I have a raffle to give away to the first person. Well, it actually is two people who signed the registration to come in today. So that's Ms. Samaya Muhammad. I believe you still have asked a question too. And we had two lists, so I picked two people from both lists because I didn't know which one was signed on first. Renika Rashawn. And then, is there anyone in here between the ages of 13 to 18? To 19, 13 to 19. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Anybody below the age of 23?
Okay.
So go down to 22. Like narrow them down.
Okay, anybody 20?
19. Anybody 19?
I already said 19. So out of the two people that are 20, what's the birthdays?
What month? You said month.
June 4th.
September 12th.
All right, so June 4th.
Who said June 3rd?
It is so important that as young people, you're engaged, you come to events like this, you learn, you take this information back to your peers, so thank you. All right, and I have one more, and that was for Miss Cassandra D. Jenkins, who was the first person to ask a question today. A wealth of knowledge and information. So always, look, when you're in a room and we say ask questions, ask a question. We all thinking about it. The first person you inspire everybody else to speak up and to ask their questions that they're thinking about, you making a safe space for everybody. So we're gonna start the expo. We have plenty of more of these to give out, and they're gonna just be based on when we draw names for the raffle. So
Also, the clerk of court, if you need forms you got to file, we got free forms over here. You come to the office, they cost, but today they free. So divorce forms, small claims, all types of forms, all right?
All right, and we also have refreshments. There's some refreshments over to the table. Also, please get one of the bags donated by South Hope Credit Union.